Hey, listen, I'm on hand here to tell you that there's a new trend, and you better be careful because it's going to sneak up on you. All of a sudden, you're going to be caught way off base. Yeah, I've been in certain areas lately where new trends really begin. And I'm predicting that within 2 years, either totally bald heads or heads with the what used to be called the crew cut are going to be the totally in thing. I'm sorry, Larry. Man, I'm telling you. I don't make the news. I only report it. I'll tell you the truth. In fact, there's a growing... Yeah, this... Because after all, almost everybody in a what they call a pluralistic society wants to be stand out, to look different, right? Okay, well, if you walk down the street, say if on McDougal Street or Greenwich or someplace like that, man, I mean, everybody, there's just nobody that doesn't have hair hanging down to their knees. Well, one guy walks down the street with no hair at all. There's going to be either a round of applause or a round of boos. Now, this is the fate, B-O-O-S, not Z, friend. Of course, there's them rounds, too. I don't mind that. Little bourbon never hurt anybody. Right kind of bourbon. But nevertheless, when you go walking around, you just gotta see it for what it is. Some guy pointed out to me the other day. He says, you see all them those smiling faces on the billboards, and on those buttons, all those yellow faces. He says, it's a strange world where only the buttons smile and the people don't. And there's some truth to that. So I just say, that it's coming. It's moving along. And Larry, you set that up in there because we're working with Larry here tonight, and I want to demonstrate something. He's never seen. Larry's just come from the vast wilds of the Midwest, and he's never seen anybody actually play the Jews Harp. Have you, Larry? Really? You never did? You ever seen one? Okay, you've seen them. Now these are not toys. Now, if you set that up in there, I'm going to play this thing for you, and then you can hear what they sound like. All right, get it going in there, Larry. We'll show you what it sounds like. That's all you're going to get tonight. I mean, bad person. Hey, listen, I gotta tonight do something that is kind of painful to me. I have to apologize to Philadelphia. Now, no one insisted that I do this. It's just my own basic inherent conscience. And your conscience can be a real drag. I'm telling you, it's a bad thing. I wish somebody, some really great scientist would come up with some kind of a transistorized machine. It's totally battery operated. You carry it around with you, and you plug it in anytime you need it. Just turn it up, and it would do its work. And I just wish some guy would come up with a conscience eraser. I mean, everybody's talking about the raising your consciousness. Of course, that's generally transcribed into common ordinarily English means when you raise somebody's consciousness, you are converting somebody to your viewpoint. That's called raising the consciousness. And often you have to raise his consciousness by beating him around the ears or kicking him around the kidneys sometimes. But nevertheless, that's called raising the consciousness. That means making you agree with him. Nobody has ever been accused of having his consciousness raised when he disagrees with you. So, that can be a drag. But nevertheless, I would like to suggest to the scientists out there, to any scientists listening, which I sincerely doubt, because scientists are, they have much more important things to do than listen to somebody else. And I would like to suggest to you that if you could work on a transistorized device that could be carried in the pocket, or you could, you carry it in your jeans or whatever you got there, that this device, if it could counteract the forces that are inside of you. You see, it is a fact, a physical fact, that almost all of the things that you do, like, say, if you move your arm, you ever thought about, you move your arm, you do it without even thinking, see? But actually, that's a complicated thing, and how it works is primarily electrical. See, your brain sends out a little tiny electrical spark, and this little spark travels through the nervous system, all through the little points of contact there, and it travels all the way down to your finger, see, right down to the muscle in your finger, to your arm, to your wrist, and it says, move. And at that point, it will move. Well, now, if you touch something, it's the reverse, see. If your finger touches the top of the table, and there's a little tiny electrical impulse goes from the tip of your finger, and it roars up to your brain and says, you are touching a table. See, that your brain translates this touch. Now, once in a while, under certain drugs, the shapes of those electrical impulses are changed. Therefore, when you touch a table, instead of your brain getting a table code, a little pip that says table, it gets a pip that has been distorted by drugs, and you think you're touching, say, a giant dragon. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly how drugs work. Or did you know? So people think, well, they're getting greater consciousness. See, now for the first time in their life, they realize that a table is a dragon. Not at all. They're just getting bad. They're just getting bad messages back. See, it's this is in essence what many of the hallucinogenic drugs do. It screws up the message center there, and so. Following that same logic, if you use that type of logic, you realize that almost everything that man does is controlled by the electrical impulses in his head. So here you're sitting there, see, and you're looking across the table at this chick, and you're trying to play like you're a very straight type guy. You're saying, yes, of course, yes, I do think we're having interesting weather these days. And all the while, there's something inside of you saying, get after her, man. Make it big, see? Well, this is a bad thing to do because she's married to another guy and she's going with a guy who's a friend of yours, a whole bit, Now, what is lousing up your life there? Well, it's that electrical impulse you're getting in your brain that keeps saying, that ain't a good thing to do. Now, if somehow you could circumvent that electrical impulse with a machine that could negate it. After all, electrical impulses can be changed. We all know that. You can change them by various types of electronic radiation. Radio will do this, see? So you can just turn this thing up a little bit and suddenly your conscience is gone completely. Now, I think that would be a public service machine for most of us. I think for most of us, our consciences, which is different from consciousness, our consciences hold us back. Now, just think what you could do if you didn't have any conscience at all. You ever thought about that, Larry? You think about it for a second. I mean, no conscience at all. I mean, nothing bothered you. Oh, man, you could become the King Kong of your block. No trouble at all, see? And if you could buy a machine like that had transistors, batteries, you could go down to Corvettes and get new batteries for it once in a while. When you begin to feel pangs of conscience, you go down and get new batteries. Either that or you could get one that charges itself up, But all these things are part of our time. And here I'm conscience-stricken because of something that I said about Philadelphia here a couple of weeks ago. Not that Philadelphia gave a damn one way or the other, but I do, see. And what it is this, and I will tell you this. I said a few weeks ago that Philadelphia is the only city in the country where the people are so dedicated to booing everything that shows up. They're notorious. The boo birds of Philadelphia are traditional in sporting circles. That they booed the national anthem when it would come on, Well, this is not true. I have just received a communique from one of our spies, and some guy wrote a column in Philadelphia. His name is James Smart, And he writes a column called In Our Town, and he denies emphatically that Philadelphians ever have booed the national anthem. And he goes on to make a point, and I have to concede. I will read this piece to you, and then you can gather your own, make your own decisions on this. Of course, New York leads the nation in everything. And I guess I was being kind of hasty. I should have known it would be New York. He said, it is well known that whenever 2 or 3 Philadelphians are gathered together, antagonism is in the midst of them. That is true. He admits this. Our sporting enthusiasts are noted for booing. When Del Ennis, who was leading the Phillies to the 1950 pennant, hitting 30 home runs and batting .300, the fans booed him if he hit a 330-foot drive and it went foul. Eagle fans, that's true. Let me tell you what I saw once at Philadelphia. I never would believe it. Ritchie Allen. Now, you all know Ritchie Allen's a pretty damn good ball player, right? I mean, the curious thing about booers, and I just, I've observed them all my life. I've been around booers of all types. Is that booers never boo anything that is mediocre or bad. They always boo what's good. So you would never find a Philadelphian booing a Humpty Dumpty infielder who's just been brought up from Syracuse for the 8th time, and his lifetime batting average is 189. They don't boo him at all. They just watch him. And if he gets a hit, then they cheer like crazy because it's the second hit he's gotten all year, Whereas it's Ritchie Allen they boo. The only reason they had a ball club is Ritchie Allen. So I was out at the ballpark in Philadelphia one day, seeing this is what happened. I'll give you the picture here. Allen has 2 straight homers. First time up, first inning, pow, out of the park. He hits them mean. He doesn't hit these pop fly homers. He hits the kind of homers that knocks guys right out of their seat. If you're up there and say up in the upper deck someplace and he drills a home run at you, you better get out of the way. You don't, circle under it, like you're going to catch a pop fly, like a Ron Swoboda homer, they kind of drift up and down. His they go out, see. Well, he belted one, I'll tell you. He's got that clean swing. See, right out it goes in the upper deck, zap. Well, true to the Philadelphia tradition, they greeted that with thunderous silence. There were a few out-of-towners that applauded, but you could just see it was half-hearted. And so the 3rd inning comes up, and up comes Ritchie Allen. This time, Allen drills one to the opposite field. And if anything, this one went back even further into the stands than the first one. He really caught this one in the fat part of the bat. And I'll tell you could hear the seats cracking and everything out there when it hit up there. See, because in the ballpark in Philadelphia, there were plenty of empty seats. So when that thing hit those seats out there, you could hear lumber crashing and pieces of metal flying and everything. See, so he goes trotting around the bases. The Phillies have now got 2 runs, okay? All right, it's 3rd inning. And so he goes trotting around the bases, and again, to thunderous silence. And he goes, and even from his teammates, that's what was fascinating. See, because booing is, I'm afraid, catching. It's like cold sores and infectious hepatitis. It catches you. It's all part of the mob thing, It's a deadly disease, which reminds me, this is WOR.
Over the past 32 years, Newsday, the Long Island newspaper, has become one of the great success stories in publishing history. Recently, we started a Sunday edition. And what Newsday has done so well 6 days a week, we're now doing just as well on Sunday. For example, the editorial page section.
I'm Bob Weimer, editorial writer and columnist for Newsday. In our coverage of the news, we tell you what's happening. In our editorial page section, we try to tell you why it's happening. We call this section Viewpoints in the daily paper. In Sunday's expanded section, we call it Ideas. It's the place where you'll find hard-hitting editorials and the political cartoons of Pulitzer Prize winner Tom Darcy. Where Newsday columnist Patrick Owens and I often sharply disagree. Where politicians and professors and our own readers sound off. It's your journal of opinion.
Newsday, Long Island's own Sunday newspaper. No service charge for home delivery.
And do you have that? Do you have that cheap guitar music for me, Larry? Please hit it there, please. We got a little business to take care of here. Yes, indeed. Yes, TAP here has this special youth fair, and they'd like to lay it on you here. Say that if you'd like to meet the kids of Italy and England, Germany, Switzerland, Denmark, and all those other places, well, go where they are. They're all in Portugal this year on their vacation, because it's the place that, and it's quite true. Most of the Europeans I know in Europe, and this is a fact, it's nothing to do with commercial here, do take their vacations in Portugal. And for a lot of reasons. And once you spend any time in the country, you know why. But for $210 round-trip economy airfare, you can use this ticket for a year. Ticket is good for a year, and it's the Intercontinental Airline of Portugal, TAP, and it's $210 isn't bad at all. And you'll see the whole country. I mean, as far as you want to see it. The prices are low, the food is great, and the people move real nice. Call your travel agent or TAP at 421-8500 for complete information about TAP's $210 youth fare. That's $210 youth fare to Portugal. So go where the Europeans go on their vacations, Portugal. Thank you. That's very nice, Larry. You played that real good. Anyway, I'd like to, this scene. See, it was a very dramatic scene for me because the psychology of the booer is, to me, an extremely interesting thing to watch. He's a special type. Not everybody boos. Do you agree with that, Larry? Not everybody does. And those who do generally have very fat necks. It comes from years of booing. You know, you could just see their throats swell, and you could see the veins on their necks stand out when he's really getting into it, when he's really pushing the old diaphragm into it, and he's booing good. Well, it is the third inning, and Ritchie Allen has belted one out of the park. Well, they were playing the Chicago Cubs, and, the Phillies were deep in one of their usual losing streaks, and it was a quiet afternoon out there, and the Cubs were going along, and I think somebody like Randy Hundley or somebody, he belted one out. Then there were a couple of other runs scored. Now here you got, the score is 3-2 going into, I believe it was the first of the eighth inning. And Ritchie Allen comes to bat. They're one run behind. Ritchie Allen has accounted for all the runs that Philadelphia has. It's 3-2. He's hit 2 home runs out. See, all the other Humpty Dumptys were going out, pop flies, strikeouts. Once in a while, a guy would just sulk and wouldn't come up to bat, and they'd call him out. The usual Philadelphia ball player scene. Well, up comes Ritchie Allen. This is his third time up in the game, see. He's now batting about .374 in the season. His combined run production, his run production alone, amounting from home runs scored, and all of it, triple the entire team's run production. He has driven most of the runs that year. He has scored all the rest. And, there he is. See, caught all the flies in the outfield. He's been doing it all. So, anyway, Ritchie Allen is now up for the third time. See, and I lean forward in my seat. The score is 3-2. And the first pitch goes by, and it is a ball. Allen looks it over. The second pitch is inside and over the corner of the plate. And it's a strike. I heard a few tentative boos at that point. Well, Allen says nothing. He just puts his hand on the top of his batting helmet, pushes it down a little tighter. He spits, kicks the dirt around, and he digs in at the plate. He's waiting for the next pitch. The pitcher, by the way, who was Ferguson Jenkins, ain't no fluke himself, So Jenkins rears back, and he lays one down over the outside corner. Allen reaches out, and he tagged it. He hit that ball as hard as any ball I've ever seen hit. It whistled right over the second baseman, just like a shot. It was almost invisible. It was a blur. And that ball hit in front of the left fielder, who was cutting over. He picked that ball up, and the center, they were all shifted for him, see. The left fielder grabbed that ball on the first hop. It was a single. And to a man, the Philadelphia Bluebirds opened up. Allen had not hit a home run. And it was a glorious thing to see. I mean, this is a true bluebird at work. A bluebird rarely boos a failure. In fact, he doesn't often recognize a true failure. That's one of his problems. See, he often boos success, and I suspect this is because of his own basic failures himself as a human being. See, nothing gets him more angry than a guy that does it, and so they boo. You hear boo, boo, boo. They can't boo you, bum. They're yelling out, "Hey, send him back to Syracuse!" And they're booing, and you can just hear these boos echoing throughout the stadium. And Allen is standing on first. He does nothing. He just, hits his batting helmet on the top, and he spits down in the coaching box. He just looks around. I could just sense that feeding, that radiation that was going between Allen and the Bluebirds. Of course, Allen, at that point then, was provoking more boos because he obviously didn't give a damn. That makes a booer really mad. This little drama that I witnessed out there was true creative booing. And yes, it's easy to boo a guy that, drops a pop fly. But when you boo a guy who's gotten 3 hits out of the 4 that your team has that day, that's creative booing. That takes guts. So anyway, this writer, Smart, goes on to say, he says, Eagle fans once threw snowballs at Santa Claus when he came out on Franklin Field. I'm just quoting. I'm not making it up here. Fans of the 76ers once bounced a beer can off a rival coach's head. Flyers fans have been in fights with players from other hockey teams. The fans get up and start fighting, see? A crowd at a 1931 World Series game in Shibe Park booed President Hoover in one giant boo. Not only sports fans are antagonistic. A mob of Philadelphians threw rocks at Mayor Dilworth. A man at the Schubert Theater once shocked a cast of Broadway actors by jumping up in his seat and hollering, "Speak up, you bums!" That's Philadelphia. But New York, always a close second to Philadelphia culturally, finally outdid the staid old Quaker City in the boo-bird department. Last week, an audience of New Yorkers hissed the national anthem, played by Van Cliburn in Carnegie Hall. And this writer says, how's that for brass belligerence? It was reported by Robert Sherman in his music review in the New York Times. Quote, many in the full house were startled and some annoyed when Mr. Cliburn opened the program with the Star-Spangled Banner. One woman in a stage seat pointedly refused to rise, and a few listeners were rude enough to hiss, Sherman wrote. A spot check with the owners of some of the most durable memories in our sports and entertainment departments here at the Bulletin in Philadelphia produced a unanimous opinion. No Philadelphia crowd can be remembered of having booed the national anthem. Philadelphians, true, have booed little kids not doing well in a pre-baseball Easter egg hunt. They have. That's a famous incident. Poor kids out there, they were failing. They booed this year's stadium opening when Kite Man hit an air pocket in the upper deck, little caring that he'd broken his ascent on their behalf. Philadelphians are on record as having booed every American institution except peanut butter, Shirley Temple, trout fishing, and Sunday school picnics. But a New York crowd in Carnegie Hall has stolen the Boo Bird honors for 1972. The Times critic, being a music critic and not a booing critic, made no effort to analyze the motives of the anthem hissers. Was the hissing of the Star-Spangled Banner a protest against Mr. Nixon's latest improvement in our Southeast Asian activities? Was it because the music isn't a particularly good piece of music, the anthem, even for a national anthem? Was it because Van Cliburn didn't play it well? Or that's a good idea. Or was the hissing a reflection of a frequently heard complaint that it cheapens the national anthem to use it as the overture for all sorts of commercial events? Well, whatever the answer, the fact remains that New York has reached a new plateau in the Boo Bird field. The mighty booers of Philadelphia must now look to their raucous vocal laurels. Hissing the national anthem is such a peak of audience rudeness that the Philadelphia Bluebirds may have to go into training and work up to it gradually. Perhaps they could start by booing the Spectrum's Kate Smith record of God Bless America, which is sometimes, I felt like booing that myself. Oh, man. Which is sometimes substituted for the national anthem before hockey matches. But even that needs a little mental preparation. The Philadelphians might phase into it by, say, booing Golden Slippers at the Mummers Parade, or shouting, dry up at the Festival of Fountains. The Carnegie Hall bunch has issued a clear-cut challenge. What now, Philadelphia Bluebirds? Well, Philadelphia's a fascinating city. It's called, it's in keeping with that Shepard's famous 180-degree phase shift theory, which basically stated is this, that almost anything that proclaims itself loudly, one thing, whatever that thing is almost invariably true that the actuality is 180 degrees the opposite. So if a person comes up to you and says, I am a loving person, they ain't. Anytime anybody has to say that, they ain't. Think about that, Larry. Listen, there's an old among highly how can I put it, experienced Lotharios. There's an old rule of thumb. Anytime a chick tells you she loves you every 5 minutes, I would be worrying. Don't show up without knocking one day. You're liable to find the television repairman under the bed. That's all I got to say. and this is the truth, And yet most people, they take words literally. So if a guy keeps saying to you, I'm a very sensitive person. I'm sensitive. I'm really, have you ever thought about a friend? I'm really sensitive. That's the one thing he ain't. He's got about as much sensitivity as a turtle in heat. And that ain't much. So, the city of brotherly love, which has always prided itself, it even has it written all over signs. That's one thing it ain't got. Brotherly love. In fact, did you know that of course, you know the recent, the hassle about 1976. They've been talking about having our 200th anniversary as a country. It's 1976. It's going to be 200 years since 1776. And naturally, Philadelphia would be the city that they would have it in. This is all this stuff. They got into such a hassle that the entire city of Philadelphia was in such a gigantic argument as to where they were going to have it, when, what kind of buildings they were going to have, who was going to give the first speech, who was going to cut the ribbon, that they finally said, forget it, and they're not doing it. What a fascinating city. But I'll tell you, though, for curious cities, when it comes to reactions to strange things, I say that the obvious, to me, most people have only lived in one or two cities, so they don't really have much to compare it to. Chicago has some fantastic local folk mores, which you don't even hear about as a New Yorker. One of them, for example, they used to have big parades, say, a tremendous parade, and it's a holiday in the city there. It's a big holiday, which you never hear about. It's not a national holiday. It's just a holiday, see. And the holiday really is basically built on the theme, thank God I am a Chicagoan day. And they actually, thousands of guys would parade up and down the streets, the plumbers and the guys that work in the electrical union and the guys, that work in the American, the whole bunch, see, big signs, big parades, and they have these big, enormous floats that say, thank God I am a Chicagoan. Well, now that's a local thing. I never felt particularly groovy about living in Chicago with all that crud blowing in from the steel mills and and all that stuff. But nevertheless, this is a local thing. Now, New Yorkers, they have their own things which have to be explained to natives, the natives of other cities who come to us occasionally. They don't realize that with the New Yorker, an argument is a form of fun. That's the first thing you get to learn. So you're sitting in a cab, say, and it sounds to an outsider like you're having an argument with a cab driver. You are not. you are actually just passing the time of day with a cab driver. So a typical argument will break out over anything. See, like for example, if the guy's a Shea Stadium nut, you notice. See, he's a Met fan. He's got the Mets on, and you're riding along. This typical little incident in New York, and you say to the guy in the front seat, he's driving along, like this happened to me. See, I said, boy, it's been fascinating what's been happening to the Yankees. He's listening to the Mets. See, this little funny thing, I could see his neck get a little red. And I'm just making conversation. I figure he's interested in baseball. See, again, that's the outsider's view. He doesn't really recognize that a Met fan is not interested in baseball. He's interested in the Mets. The two are totally different things. Just like most Jet fans couldn't care less about football. It's Joe Namath they like. That's a different thing. So we're riding along, and I said, gee, it's terrible what's been, it's really bad what's been happening to Yankees, like that. He turns around, he says, well, the bums, who cares about a damn Yankee? Get that bums out. Yankees, what are you talking about the Yankees? I said, well, wait a minute, I figured I'd bait him. See, if you have your choice in an argument like that. Either you say, yeah, that's true. that's true. How's Seaver doing today? Then, of course, you're back in normal train of thought with him, and everything's cool. But I figured I was going to bait him, see? So, I'm paying the freight. I figured, what the hell, I might as well take the negative side of the argument. After all, the meter's ticking, and I'm paying. So I said, I said, you don't take those Mets seriously. That's nothing but a bunch of guys out there parading with the signs. A bunch of kids yelling around, I love the Mets. He turns around, his eyeballs are popping like he's, like a tromped-on toad frog. Like, what the hell am I doing here? Talking about the Mets. He said, what are you, a Yankee fan? I said, well, yes, I am. As a matter of fact, I am a Yankee fan. I ain't met no one of them for years. He said, you mean you're actually a Yankee fan? I said, yes, I am. He said, oh, come on, you're kidding. Well, of course, you realize that's the New Yorker's phrase, you're kidding, can be used 1,000 different ways. It can be used to denote incredulity. It can be used to denote even admiration, like, you're kidding. And so he was totally incredulous. He couldn't believe that that somebody would not be a Met fan, see? So he said, oh, come on, you're kidding. I said, no, I like the Yankees. I think if the Yankees got a couple of good pitchers, you see, I slipped right into the vernacular. If the Yankees got a couple of good pitchers, now I'll tell you what they ought to have done. If they had gotten rid of Horace Clark, and if they had any kind of luck at all, they could have picked up somebody like maybe Louis Aparicio. They could have had an infielder, Turns to me, and he says, are you putting me on? I said, no, I'm not. I'm a Yankee fan. He said, I've been out to the Yankees for years. I wouldn't go near them bums. Yankees. What's the name of this guy? What's his name? Boink? Something like that coming along here? You call that guy general manager? That guy said, fired Yogi. That's what they did. Fired Yogi. I said, that's true. They did fire Yogi. I said, I stand accused. That was a bad thing to do. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Of course, now, see, I'm mollifying him. See, I'm playing with him like a... Yeah, that's right. So then, you won a pennant. The last pennant they won. What do you do? They fire him. So that's right. But, come to think of it, he said, Yankees are pretty good, actually. He said, a lot of people, I take them up to the stadium once in a while. He said, I take them up there. So I don't figure they're really good for the Yankees. They're always going up there for they had a bat day, They go up there for the bats. They got a bat day, they got a ball day, and a cap day, and, they're going to have a free home plate day. They're going to have a giveaway, a cake day. They're going to give away money day. They don't go up there to see the Yankees. I said, that's true. That's probably no. I said, I have 3 baseball caps now. I go up there and I wear my short shoes and I get in, I get one of these free caps. I can understand that. So now we've been going, back and forth. Neither one of us remember anything of the conversation. So finally I come up to 40th Street where I'm getting out, and I give the guy the dough. And he's nice talking to you. Always like to hear about, the other side of an argument. It's really good to hear about that, once in a while. You got to keep your mind open, right? I said, yeah, you're right. You got to keep your own mind open. You got to keep thinking. He said, right. Bah! Off he goes, the cloud of dust and pieces of tin falling off his car. He's back in a fight. So this is a typical New York scene. Now, to an outsider, they would not recognize that this is not an argument that's going on here. We're speaking as two fellow New Yorkers. And the two fellow New Yorkers are always that way. Now, you can create any argument you want in New York by taking any position on Lindsay. Any position. So, you say, you get in a cab scene, you say, one thing we got going for us in this city. And the guy's going to look around. He's going to say, what is that? And you say, we're lucky to have a guy like Lindsay as mayor. Okay, you're all set for a conversation now for the next 9 hours. You agree with that, Larry? Now, on the other hand, if you want to start a different kind of conversation, you get in the cab scene and say, I'll tell you, there's only one thing wrong with this damn town. And he's going to turn. Well, what's that? He figures you're going to attack cab drivers, see? There's only one thing wrong. Boy, this bum Lindsay. This town used to be great before Lindsay. Then he's off, see? And then you got another 45 minutes of stuff going. So you gotta, no matter where you go, you gotta realize that there are local, let's put it this way, folk customs. Local folk customs. Now, if you live out in the Midwest, as you know, Larry, you just come from the Midwest, and if you walk around in the Midwest and you say, the one place that I would like to live is New York, that's an incredible statement to anyone outside of New York. They think you're crazy. You obviously are putting them on. I mean, they can't believe that anyone would... Because one of the great basically held tenets to all people living in the Midwest is that New York, you've heard the expression, New York is a great place to visit, but I sure wouldn't want to live there. Well, if you come out and say, I'd really like to live in New York, I'll tell you, oh, man, you got yourself set up for the whole summer. Arguments, battles, yelling. People say, what's happening to Larry? There's something wrong with the guy. What's going on with him? He's got some personal problems. I don't know what it is with him, Can't be that he just simply would love to live in New York. And so I have to always take that into account. See, as a guy who travels around a great deal, a guy who travels around, I always blend into the local scenery, wherever it is, see? I take the local attitude. So when I walk around in Gary, Indiana, or Hammond, Indiana, the first thing I get off the bus or the streetcar, whatever it is, see, I say in a very loud voice, boy, oh boy, am I sure glad to be out of New York. Let me tell you, I sure is a great place to visit, but I sure as hell, boy, it's rotten living there. Oh boy, violence everywhere. I may be telling this to a guy who just mugged 4 people. See? He doesn't, so he feels good about it right away. Now, I get back here in New York, and the first thing I say is, I'll tell you this, gang. Oh, man, sure great to be back in New York. I'll tell you, I have to agree with W.C. Fields when he said, any place outside of New York is out of town. Then they feel warm, see. So you have to cater to, you have to cater to everybody's hang-ups. Now, if you don't have any of these natural feelings of total chauvinism inside your gut, if you personally don't have them, you're liable to be having, a lot of problems. You're always also, incidentally, liable to turn into a humorist. Now, listen carefully when I say that almost every humorist that I know who's working as a humorist, almost every one, is a guy who feels no natural loyalty to any given thing. So he looks at almost everything with the cold light of reality. Other people look at the thing with the cold, softly burning light of total sentimentality. So a humorist is a guy who's going to be booed by everybody, ultimately. He may be applauded for the first 5 jokes, but it's the last 3 that get him. And so, yes, it's very complex. So a true humorist, now I'm not talking about a comic. Now, most comics do not do that. Most comics are a different thing. Most comics work to the prejudices of their audience. So if you're working the Sands Hotel, you make a whole bit about all the squares who don't come to the Sands, see? And so that's not a humorist. That's a comic. Very different thing. Oh, no. Humorist is something else. Jonathan Swift was primarily a humorist, I would have to say. I would have to say Voltaire was primarily a humorist. That's why he was chased in and out of France periodically, depending on what he said last. And that's right. And so a humorist, and he never holds a position. That's another thing. See, a classic example of a comic who had a position and lost out because it changed was Mort Saul. Mort Saul's whole career was based on Eisenhower. Eisenhower left office, forget it. So the ball game is over. And, it's not easy. Just think of the number of industries that are going to go out of business the day the Vietnamese war is actually over. My God, button factories are going to close. You're going to find poster plants all of a sudden poverty-stricken. Can you imagine the number of people who won't have anything to do Sunday afternoons? I mean, all those great rallies. And the bullhorn manufacturers are going to suddenly have a terrible, it's going to be an awful depression set in the bullhorn industry. And all these things, see, let's face it, we love adversity. Oh, sure. And I think 50 years from now, old codgers are going to sit around and talk about the good old days when they used to march. They used to be in the Peace March, or they used to be in this march. Yeah, they'll get all dreamy-eyed. And the guys at that period say, come on, quit talking about all that old... Who cares about that stuff? What do you mean? And the guys say, but you don't understand. It's just like the guys who must have been in the Whiskey Rebellion. Great things like that. The Boer War. Can you imagine a guy who was in the Boer War? Nobody cares about the Boer War. He could talk for 100 years, and who the hell's going to listen, But these are all part and parcel of I should say, the constantly revolving, wearing blend mix of existence, time, and reality. Each in his own time, And so the humorist, of course, is attached to no time. He's attached to no creed. He has no known parentage. He belongs to no known ethnic group. And for that reason, he's constantly and continually in a feeling of unease with every group and all groups. Oh, yeah, nothing makes me unhappier and sadder than to be with a group of people who are nostalgists. Which sounds like, oh, boy, do you remember the good old days? Oh, boy, do you remember them? Oh, do you remember Howdy Doody? Oh, was that great? Oh, do you remember the Mouseketeers? Oh, yeah, I do. It was terrible. And so you got to realize that each one of us, in his own time, makes a devilish attempt to attach ourselves to some kind of a ship of fools. Now, if some guy didn't get a hold of the trailing rope and nobody threw him a life raft, and he didn't get a hold of one of the life preservers and never got on the ship, and now he's just swimming. The humorist can be viewed as a man who is continually swimming all by himself across the vast gulf of time and life. All the other people are in boats of various sizes. I mean, some of them are dancing up on the top deck, and others are down on the bottom in the steerage, getting ready to overthrow the guys on the top deck, and all the way up and down, see? But the humorist is a guy who's quietly swimming all by himself, and he has no flag attached to his head. Because somewhere along the line in the big deluge, he lost his flag, his badge. Hey, I'm sorry, Larry. Yeah, this is WOR in New York, and we have Lester Smith in the news coming up.
This is the news in detail on the hour from the WOR newsroom. 2 railroad bridges in North Vietnam destroyed today by American guided bombs. And according to a United States military spokesman in Saigon, the bombs were the laser beam guided devices. 8 other bridges and 2 fuel depots elsewhere in the north were also hit by American air power. On the other side of the Vietnam border, there are still some communist forces around the South provincial capital of An Loc, Today they opened fire with mortars on civilian refugees fleeing the town. 12 were killed, 30 wounded. At Da Nang, a rocket attack just before midnight against the United States Air Base left 3 civilians dead and 15 Vietnamese and 6 Americans wounded. Senate Majority Leader Mike Mansfield, a recent visitor to Peking, has warned of any active entrance by China into the Vietnam War if United States bombing attacks get too close to the Chinese border. But that warning was tempered in a reply today from the State Department. A spokesman remarked that American bombing of North Vietnam near the China border is not in any way intended to threaten China's security. Details on paper were given today by President Nixon to the Senate on the Washington-Moscow nuclear arms limitation agreements. In asking for ratification, the President repeated his assurance to the Senate that the pacts do safeguard American security. Mr. Nixon went beyond the usual message to the Congress in support of his foreign aid policy. He asked members of 5 Senate and House committees to meet with him on Thursday for a complete discussion on the agreements. Social Security changes completed in the Senate Finance Committee. That bill would raise Social Security benefits 10% and finance that boost by upping the payroll tax. And so by 1973, $581